Hey y'all, hey. It's your girl Morgan Renee tuning in for another Storytime of More Mile. Let me redo my intro. Instagram just now and hopping aboard. Hey y'all, hey, it's your girl Morgan Renee. Thank you for tuning in to another Storytime with More Mile. We're still in the book Trying to Sleep in the Bed You Made by best friends Virginia DeBerry and Donna Grant. We are in chapter 5. If you hear some water behind me, I try to give y'all a little what's the word? Little ensemble, little piece while you're listening to me. I'm at this little fountain that's in one of the areas I like to relax in before I go into work. So, all right, let's hop into it. Chapter 5. Let's see. So I know in chapter 4, and it's a short chapter, so that's good because I don't got much time. I know in chapter 4, we was learning more about Pat's life at school on the island. Well, not in school, but helping one of her school teachers and going to some fancy party, meeting some girl with a bold personality and all that. So let's see. And Marcus was treating, what's the girl named Gail, was treating her some type of way. So yeah, let's hop into it. It starts off, it says, "Something about your love" is the quote. Marcus smiled, shifted gears, and eased the car into the flow of traffic heading east on I-90. There wasn't a cloud in the afternoon sky. The sultry September breeze was hot, and his rookie season was over. He bought the black Firebird with his signing money, and he loved it. When he called home, his mother answered, and Marcus thought she was doing real good until she called his father to the phone, telling him Freddie was calling. His father, as usual, acted like nothing was wrong and fussed at Marcus for wasting good money buying a fast, showy car. He wanted to know who Marcus had to impress, but like everything else, it seemed his father just didn't get it. Blackbird was long, low, and lean, with a deep, burnished gold Firebird emblazoned across the hood. This car was important. He was a player, and this was part of his image. He copped a lean and cruised the neighborhood when he got home to St. Albans tonight. He only had 2 days before he was due in Hagerstown, but he made sure everyone got a look at his new ride. "Maybe I'll pick up Gail." She had written to him all the time on thin, crackly pink paper that smelled like the perfume she always wore, and sent him pictures and silly stuff like teddy bears and cookies she baked. Some of his teammates teased him, but he looked forward to the mail and decided the guys were just jealous. After the way he acted when she met him in Pittsfield, he half expected her to tell him to go to hell, but he sent her flowers and a card and never heard a word about the trip. The engine raced loud like he liked it. He threw the car into fourth. The engine dropped down to a murmur, and the needle on the speedometer edged towards 60. "I made it. I'm going to spring training." He didn't know until yesterday, and he and Frankie had watched, waiting their turn as, one by one, more than half of the team was summoned to the manager's office for the "Sorry, son" speech. Staring at the cracks in the concrete of the locker room floor as his buddies cleaned out their lockers, he nervously joined the mumbled choruses of "See you around," wondering the whole time if he was next. But amazingly, in spite of the worst season of ball he played in his whole life, when the slaughter was over, he was still standing, and so was Frankie. Marcus knew he'd have to be good at camp. They told him as much, but he would be there. Marcus popped his new Stevie Wonder tape into the 8-track and pumped up the volume. He and Frankie had gotten $50 worth of change and spent it all calling winter leagues in Florida until they found a couple of invitations to try out. Booker T is going to be pissed. In his newly established "I have a paycheck" manhood, Marcus had taken to referring to his father by his given name, only in his absence, of course. Booker had used his seniority to get Marcus one of the highly coveted winter jobs at the post office, and he would not be happy when he heard that Marcus was going to Florida. For that matter, neither would Gail, but he had to go where he could play, and they get over it. "Love's in need of love today. Don't delay," Stevie charged. Got that right. Marcus checked his side view mirror and nosed Blackbird into the passing lane. He never missed Eric, but Simone was another story. He never missed Eric, but Simone was another story. He met her his first week in town, and she made it a place he would never forget. The week he arrived, the temperature hovered at 100 degrees day and night. The hottest June in 70 years, the weatherman announced, like it made his year. He and Frankie hit it off pretty good and rented a furnished apartment near the stadium. The owners, an elderly couple, had been taking in rookies every summer for as long as there had been a team in town. "Doing our civic duty," they said. They were nice enough. The rent was cheap, and Marcus and Frankie took the place sight unseen, only to find that the third floor, as they called it, was really an attic and it was hot as hell. To make matters worse, Frankie snored. Not just your everyday rumble and snort. Frankie had bad and noise and sinus trouble, so he roared and grunted like a wounded grizzly every night. Marcus sailed along the highway, trying to hold it to 65, recalling the day before their home opener. All he wanted was sleep, but he also knew he couldn't walk out on the field without a couple of gold chains around his neck. All the guys wore them like they were a part of the uniform. He and Frankie were still unchained, so they headed to the mall in search of gold. They went in different directions because Frankie heard there was a place you could buy gold by the inch, and Marcus wasn't about to buy gold from any place besides a jewelry store. Marcus saw her through the store window, and he didn't know exactly why, but he felt the need to make contact, to say hi, what's happening, something, anything. He hadn't actually met anybody black since he got to town. He was the only brother on the team, and while nothing bad or wrong had happened, it didn't mean he didn't feel like a fly in a milk bottle. He just needed to talk to his sister. Road signs whizzed by in a blur as Marcus passed a flatbed truck with a yellow and black wide load sign fluttering from the end of a mobile home. He could see her bent over the counter, holding a jeweler's loop to her eye, helping a customer. He had busied himself browsing around the store, hoping she'd be the one to help him. As he moved along the display cases, he kept glancing back in her direction. She was tall, almost as tall as he was, and Marcus had no idea how old she was. Black don't crack, as his father would say. Full, round curves softened her big frame, and her skin was the coppery color of a brand new penny. She wore a simple white dress, and she glowed like a fire burned just under the surface of her skin. "I'm Simone. Can I help you?" "Oh, yes, you can." Her voice was sweet and lush as melted caramels, and before he could speak, his mouth was watering. "Are you looking for something special?" Simone placed her palms on the counter, cocked her head, and looked up into his eyes. "Damn straight, and I think I just found it." He didn't mean to be thinking about sex, but the truth was that other than baseball, sex, which technically he had not actually had, at least with another person, was the only thing on his mind these days. Shit, look what happened with Pat, and I don't even know this girl. Simone, this ain't why I waited around. It's a soul thing. I would have waited if it had been a brother. I was, looking for, get a grip, man. Answer the lady's question like you got some sense. Simone. He took a deep breath. "I'd like to see your gold chains." "The ones for men? I mean, it's for me." "No, wedding ring." "No wedding ring." He rolled the car window down as he remembered looking at her hands pressed against the glass. They were big, like they could hold on tight, with pretty glossy nails that let the naked peachy tip show through. The speedometer crept up to 70. Simone smiled. "Right over here." And he followed the sway of her hips and the swish of her dress as she walked to the other end of the counter. And at that moment, he would have followed her up to Amazon without so much as a pair of wading boots. "Do you see anything you like?" She held his gaze briefly, then released him. "Simone. Something about your love that makes me weak and knocks me off of my feet," Stevie crooned as Marcus cranked up the volume on the car stereo again. He had shoved his hands in his pockets and bent over the glass trying to act cool, like that jewelry was the most fascinating stuff he had ever seen. Then silently recited the Star-Spangled Banner until he could stand up straight without being embarrassed. To him, it felt like an hour, but finally, he pointed at a thick serpentine chain. From a slender velvet cord tucked inside the neckline of her dress, she produced a key and unlocked the case. She placed the chain he liked against a black velvet cloth for him to inspect. 14 karat, Italian, Florentine, the best quality, safety class. It was just a sales pitch, but her words flowed over him like music as she spoke. Simone gently ran her fingers along the length of the chain. Marcus's eyes followed her perfect gleaming oval nails and tried to appear thoughtful. "Would you like to try it on?" She picked up the chain. "Turn around." He did as commanded, and he could feel her breath on the back of his neck as she leaned over the counter. Simone smelled like smoky, sweet, exotic spices in faraway places. She barely touched him when she fastened the clasp, but her fingers were light and feathery. He felt a chill race down his spine, and his mouth was watering again. Marcus and the Blackbird left Pennsylvania and into New York State. He stopped at the toll plaza, claimed a ticket for the thruway, slipped it under the sun visor, and in seconds he was doing 65 again. "I'll take it." Marcus had barely looked in the mirror. Then she had whispered in his ear, I get off at 9. Just like that. Simone. Marcus used to think that Gail would be his first, but she had made it clear that she wouldn't have. But she had made it clear that wouldn't happen until she had a ring, a real ring, and he just figured that she didn't want to know what he did in the meantime. Just from the way Simone spoke, he knew that this was the meantime. He got rid of Frankie, blew off the other guys, and by 8:30 he was wandering the mall, killing time. When Simone walked out of the jewelry store promptly at 9, he was nonchalantly studying the window display of the sporting goods store next door. I have my car here, so if you're driving, you have to follow me. He didn't ask where. Oh man, this is it. He just followed. She drove fast, weaving in and out of traffic like she was trying to see if he could keep up with her. But Marcus had no intention of getting lost. Simone made a last-minute, unsignaled, careening right turn into an apartment complex and screeched to a halt in front of a 2-story brick building. Nice car. She rubbed her hand lightly over the golden bird, and Marcus walked wordlessly behind her. Now, streaking along the highway at 75, Marcus passed I've never seen this word before, phalanx, Phalanx, a phalanx of bikers. I need my dictionary nearby and my highlighter. I have to look that up. It probably means a group. Using context clues, it probably means a big group. Inside her apartment, it was cool and quiet, and Marcus was sure she could hear his heart pounding in his chest. She went immediately to the stereo. I really love songs in the key of life, don't you? Stevie's so deep. Every song has such meaning, you know? Yeah, it's deep. Marcus had heard a couple of cuts on the radio, but he hadn't paid attention until now. Make yourself comfortable. She dimmed the light to a hazy glow and headed towards the kitchen. Marcus tugged up his pants to preserve the crease, took a seat on the edge of the chocolate brown sofa, and looked around the living room. The furniture was sleek and modern, and big fringe pillows were tossed casually around the thick gold shag carpeting. He cleared his throat. This is nice. Your place, I mean. What a stupid-ass thing to say. She knows it's nice. Thanks. I enjoy it. Simone leaned around the doorframe. Blue Nun okay? Fine. He didn't know what Blue Nun was, but it was fine with him. She grazed his hand lightly as she handed him a goblet the size of both his fists, half filled with the pale gold wine, and excused herself. The wine didn't have that sweet grape juice taste like the Yago Sangria. It tasted nutty, like when he be eating pecans and bit down on some of that bitter stuff that hides in the cracks. At that moment, it was the best thing he had ever tasted. He headed for the stereo to check out her albums when he spied a painting on the other side of the room. When he got closer, he realized it was her, stone cold naked. She sat tantalizingly, head thrown back, about to take a bite out of a pale green pear. Her hair was wild, like it belonged to something too free to tame, and he could almost feel the smooth copper skin on that big, firm thigh she had draped over the armchair. You like it? In spite of the air conditioning, all of a sudden he felt hot. I was an art major in college. A friend of mine did it. We all posed for each other all the time. Mostly they were awful, but this one I liked, so he gave it to me. Marcus was mesmerized by a sweet, breathy sound of her voice. She sat around naked in a chair while a guy painted her picture. Yeah, it's nice. Shit. Can't you say anything but nice? She'll think you're a fucking idiot. Finally, he turned around to face her. Simone posed in the doorway in a flowing white caftan, trimmed in gold. The V neckline open almost to her waist, and in the faint light coming from the other room, he could see the dark outline of her body beneath the filmy fabric. Her hair, now sprung free from its earlier ponytail, lay bushy and thick about her shoulders, almost like in the picture. Involuntarily, Marcus pressed harder on the accelerator. The blackbird hit 85 and he felt himself rise, just like he did that night and all the other nights and mornings and afternoons. Simone. He returned to his seat on the end of the sofa. Simone picked up her glass of wine from the kitchen counter and she moved through the apartment. As she moved through the apartment, Marcus caught only the slightest traces of her spicy scent. With her toes, she eased one of the floor pillows into the space between his feet. Never releasing him from her gaze, she crossed her legs at the ankle and dropped to a sitting position facing him. When she reached over for a small blue marble box on the coffee table, Marcus could see her breasts. They were right there, ripe and round, just like in the painting. She removed a joint and a cigarette lighter. It relaxes me. She took a toke and offered it to Marcus. Nah, I'm okay. I got the game tomorrow and everything. Game? It was then that Marcus realized that they didn't know anything about each other. Zip, nada. Yeah, I'm with the ball club. Oh, that's nice. Sports aren't my thing. well, team sports anyway. She winked at him, threw back her head and laughed. She took another drag, put the slender cigarette out, raised herself to a kneeling position, and leaned forward, resting her arms on Marcus's legs. Her hands were about 2 inches from his groin, and she moved them slightly closer. Do you want to do the what's your sign talk now or later? Marcus was harder than he had ever been, solid as a rock. Her hands inched closer, and she stared at his crotch. That's what I thought. She picked up her wine glass again and watched him over the rim while she sipped. With her other hand, she undid his belt buckle. Uh-oh, Simone. He's supposed to be saving himself for Gail. He had never heard the siren. What's this thing? Good morning, baby. I am not your baby. I do not like men calling me pet names, but I don't know like that. Oh, don't do that. He never heard the siren, but the flashing red and white lights in the rearview mirror eventually got his attention and obliterated his erection. Do you know how fast you were going? The boot-clad Smokey behind the mirrored shades was all business. No, officer, I don't. And that was the guy's honest truth. License and registration. He knew better than to tell him what he was thinking about and just handed him what he asked for. After sitting on the shoulder for what seemed like a week, the trooper strolled back to his car and handed him a summons. Shit, $100 and points on my damn license. He jammed the speeding ticket into the glove compartment, nosed the Blackbird onto the highway, and set the cruise control for 60. Insurance for Blackbird was already costing him a mint, and this would only make it worse. But Simone, hot, sweet, sexy Simone, was worth way more than any lousy C note. He discovered that Simone wasn't a girl. She was a woman, a 26-year-old divorcee, and she was not like anyone he had ever. Okay, so the phone overheated, as it tends to do just when I be reading outside. So I'm going to back up a little bit. So he had never heard the siren, but the flashing red and white lights in the rearview mirror eventually got his attention and obliterated his erection. Do you know how fast you were going? The boot-clad Smokey behind the mirrored shades was all business. No, officer, I don't. And that was the guy's honest truth. License and registration. He knew better than to tell him what he was thinking about and just handed what he asked for. After sitting on the shoulder for what seemed like a week, the trooper strolled back to the car and handed him a summons. Shit, $100 and points on my damn license. He jammed the speeding ticket into the glove compartment, nosed the bird back onto the highway, and set the cruise control for 60. Insurance for Blackbird was already costing him a mint, and this would only make it worse. But Simone, hot, sweet, sexy Simone, was worth way more than any lousy C note. He discovered that Simone wasn't a girl. She was a woman, a 26-year-old divorcee, and she was not like anyone he had ever known. Over the summer, she taught him things he didn't even know he needed to know. About art, about music, art, women, history, food, life, wine, books, and sex. For no reason at all, she liked him. Simone didn't know he killed his brother, broken his father's heart and spirit, or made his mother crazy. She didn't care if he played baseball or laid bricks. She only wanted what he had to give. Sex. No questions, no plans, no past, no future. Sex. It was so much better than he could have imagined. The first time she took him in her mouth, he thought he died and came back as lightning. He had yelled so loud, she stuck a pillow in his mouth and he chewed on it and saw stars bursting in air, anything to keep her from stopping. Sex. They did it all the time, before games, after games, instead of breakfast, during dinner, and they did it everywhere. His car, her car, the stadium, the park, the movies, the bathtub. Last night, he gone to Simone's to say goodbye, and surprisingly, they listened to music and talked for hours, more than they had in the 2 months they'd been together. Somehow, it felt right. Finally, he had pulled her up from the floor, led her into the bedroom, and for the first time since they met, they made love only once before they both fell asleep. This morning, he said dumb stuff about coming back to Erie or her maybe coming down to Florida. Life is long, if we're lucky. Who knows? She smiled and said, thanks for a great summer. She thanked me. He left the thruway and headed for NY-17. When he took the ticket down from the visor, two of the snapshots Gail had sent him from prom night fluttered onto his lap, and he felt like they had been taken a long, long time ago. One of the pictures was of the Three Musketeers. Gail looked so pretty and happy, and he and Pat looked like two stiffs who hardly knew each other, which was real different from the way they looked just a few hours earlier in the basement. The other photo was just of him and Gail. Me and Gail. I can't even remember when it wasn't me and Gail, like peanut butter and jelly. his arm around her waist, her hand rested on his shoulder, so you could see her wrist corsage, and she was smiling like everything was perfect, whatever that means. All right, that was chapter 5 of Trying to Sleep in a Bed You Made. We'll pick up on this again. Thank y'all for tuning in. And if you haven't, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Morgan Myers. You'll see the red logo with the yellow M inside. Please go and subscribe so you can stay caught up on these readings. All right, appreciate y'all. Peace.